A 6-year-old boy is inside what is being called an experimental aircraft.
And San Diego looked like a war zone. We'll show you the incredible rampage by a hijacked tank.
No way. A Catholic priest trying to break a record for most hours flying with helium-filled party balloons vanishes into thin air.
Cameras don't always capture what they're meant to. Sometimes they catch something else entirely. Strange accidents, hoaxes, broadcasts hijacked in the middle of a show. They aren't scripted, they aren't staged. Today, we're looking into a few of the most shocking moments caught on live television. The Balloon Boy Hoax. October 15th, 2009. A strange metallic balloon was drifting high above Fort Collins, Colorado. It looked more like a flying saucer. Every television network across the United States was covering this breaking news. No one knew what it was until a 911 call came through.
911, what's the emergency?
My family and I made an experimental flying saucer. It wasn't supposed to fly. I think my 6-year-old boy, he got inside.
Richard and Naomi Heen reported that their 6-year-old son, Falcon, had climbed into a homemade experimental balloon and accidentally set it loose. For more than 2 hours, live helicopters and ground cameras tracked the balloon as it traveled over 60 miles, reaching altitudes of up to 7,000 feet. Even the FAA and the National Guard were pulled into the chase, scrambling to ensure the boy's safety.
Now you may be asking, well, how do we bring it down?
Right.
Do you shoot it with a BB gun? Do you bring in a helicopter? What do you do? Well, all of those pose very serious risks when you've got a 6-year-old inside.
Millions of people watch it in real time, waiting for the moment when the balloon would crash. But when the balloon finally touched down, there was no boy inside. The capsule was empty.
I'm not quite sure how to say it, but I don't believe that they found anybody with this balloon. They have not found any child. There was no child on board this balloon at this point.
Now the situation had taken an even darker turn. If the boy wasn't inside the balloon, then where is he? Authorities searched nearby neighborhoods and drainage ditches. Some even considered the possibility that he had fallen out mid-flight.
Deputies from Weld County apparently is reportedly telling his people he actually saw some kind of object fall from that balloon.
You can see the hot air balloon up there and something below. There's a dot there, and obviously it's unclear what that could be. It could be anything.
The entire country were glued to the coverage, waiting for answers. Just hours later, it was revealed that Falcon had been at home the entire time, hiding in the attic above the garage. Later that evening, the Heen family appeared on CNN for an interview. When Falcon was asked why he never came out of hiding, his response shocked everyone.
Falcon, did you hear us calling your name at any time? You did? And why didn't you come out?
You guys said that we did this for the show.
We did this for the show. That one sentence changed everything. The Heen family had staged the entire ordeal, hoping to land a reality TV deal. What began as a breaking news emergency turned into one of the most infamous media hoaxes in television history. Richard Heen was sentenced to 90 days in jail, and they were ordered to pay $36,000 in restitution for the massive rescue effort their stunt had set in motion. The Max Headroom Incident. On the night of November 22, 1987, Chicago television viewers witnessed one of the strangest and most disturbing live interruptions in broadcast history. Just as sports anchor Dan Roan was recapping the day's highlights, the screen suddenly cut to black. Then a figure appeared, a man wearing a rubber Max Headroom mask. There was no sound at first, just distorted buzzing. The interruption lasted about 20 seconds before engineers at WGN managed to regain control of the signal. At the time, most viewers thought it was a technical glitch, but 2 hours later, it happened again. This time on WTTW, Chicago's PBS affiliate. And this time, it went much further. The masked figure returned, but now his voice was distorted, garbled, and unsettling. He spouted nonsensical phrases, mocked television stations, and even exposed his bare backside while being swatted with a fly swatter. The bizarre performance went on for a full 90 seconds before the station was able to cut it off. The Federal Communications Commission launched an investigation. calling it one of the most serious broadcast intrusions ever recorded. They traced the signal to somewhere in the Chicago area, but the perpetrators were never identified. To this day, the Max Headroom hijack remains an unsolved mystery. The tank Rampage. A stolen car chase is one thing, but a stolen tank chase, that's something rare to witness. On May 17, 1995, a 35-year-old man named Sean Nelson broke into a National Guard armory and stole a 57-ton M60 Patton tank. He wasn't a criminal mastermind. In fact, Sean Nelson was an Army veteran who had served as a tank crewman years before. But by the mid-1990s, Nelson's world had collapsed. He had gone through a bitter divorce, both of his parents had died. His small plumbing business had failed, leaving him broke. And that's what provoked him to do such a thing. Within minutes, he was rumbling through the fence and out onto the streets in a war machine. The rampage that followed was unlike anything the city had ever seen. Nelson flattened cars like toys, ripped fire hydrants from the ground, and snapped utility poles in half. At one point, he even tried to bring down an overpass by ramming the tank into its concrete supports. For 23 minutes, Nelson was unstoppable. The chaos ended only when Nelson tried to cross a concrete median. The tank's treads jammed, leaving it stuck. Officers swarmed onto the hull, pried open the hatch, and ordered him to surrender. Nelson refused. Moments later, he was shot. Nelson didn't survive. The rampage destroyed 40 vehicles and entire streets were torn up. The Balloon Priest. In 2008, Brazil witnessed one of the strangest stunts ever broadcasted. At first glance, it looked like a strange hot air balloon. But as the camera zoomed in, the sight became even more surreal. It wasn't a balloon at all. It was a Catholic priest, Father Adiler Antonio de Carle, strapped to a chair, being carried into the clouds by hundreds of bright helium balloons. His goal was simple: raise money for a spiritual truck stop, and maybe set a world record along the way. From the ground, it looked spectacular. Hundreds gathered as he launched into the sky. He waved to reporters and onlookers as he floated higher and higher, carried by the wind. He was very well prepared. He wore a helmet, a bright survival suit, carried food and water, a satellite phone, and even a GPS tracker. But within hours, problems began to surface. His GPS failed. He couldn't tell where the wind was taking him. Clouds began to roll in, visibility dropped, and by nightfall, all communication with him was lost. In his final phone calls, he reported drifting far off course, out towards the Atlantic Ocean. For weeks, search crews combed the coast. All they found were scraps of balloon floating in the Atlantic. 2 months later, fishermen discovered his body more than 60 miles from where he had launched. What began as a colorful stunt ended in tragedy. It became one of the most haunting live footage ever captured. Tommy Cooper 1984 incident. Tommy Cooper wasn't just a comedian, he was a magician too. His tricks are always funny, props would collapse, cards would spill everywhere, and that was the joke. He played the fool. The towering man in the red fez who made audiences laugh by getting everything wrong on purpose. But on April 15, 1984, during a live broadcast of Live from Her Majesty's, the act went wrong for real. In the middle of a trick, Tommy staggered and fell back against the curtain. The audience laughed, thinking it was part of the joke. But it wasn't. Tommy had a massive attack in front of millions. And because the show was live, the cameras didn't cut away. Millions of people watched him, unaware that they were watching his final moments. The curtain only closed when stageheads realized what was happening. Tommy was rushed to the hospital, but he never returned. He was 63 years old, and his death became one of the most surreal moments in television history. The Challenger explosion, 1986. January 28, 1986. Millions of Americans were watching live. Entire classrooms had their TVs wheeled in, because this launch was supposed to be history. For the first time, a teacher, Krista McAuliffe, would be joining NASA astronauts in space.
When you first applied for this, did you think you had even a prayer?
I really didn't. I was almost doing it kind of like when you play the lottery. If you don't play it, you don't win.
Sure.
And when I filled out that application, that's really how I felt. I figured there'd be at least 50,000 people. I still can't believe that I'm going to actually be going into that shuttle.
The shuttle rumbled on the launch pad, steam and smoke filling the air. The countdown hit 0. The Challenger rose slowly into the sky. For the first minute, everything looked perfect. But then, the unthinkable happened. 73 seconds after launch, it exploded. Challenger tore itself apart in mid-air. A giant cloud of smoke filled the sky, broadcast into every classroom in America. For a moment, no one understood what they were looking at. Broadcasters fell silent. It wasn't a trick of the camera. The shuttle had exploded, killing all 7 crew members instantly. The reason for the explosion was so absurd. A rubber O-ring seal in one of the rocket boosters had failed in the freezing weather. NASA engineers had warned about the risk. Their warnings were ignored. A single overlooked detail took 7 lives. The Challenger disaster became one of the most disturbing broadcasts in history. What was supposed to inspire an entire generation of children exploded right in front of their eyes.